Welcome back everybody to another absolute banger of a GMBN video, and I am here in the mountains of Crans-Montana, Switzerland, and it got me thinking. The mountains, they provide some amazing backdrops and amazing trails to ride, but they can be tricky and they can catch you off guard sometimes, especially if you are a bit of a beginner. So I thought, do you know what? This is a great opportunity for me to share with you some of my top tips for riding in the mountains. So here they are. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the vid. Now, you wouldn't go out for a ride at your local without an up-together, hopefully fully working bike that functions as best as it can, and the same can be said for when you're tackling the mountains. Imagine everything amplified by 10, and that's what riding those big mountain, long, rough trails are, unless, of course, you're very lucky that you already live in the mountains, in which case I'm a little bit jealous. But just make sure that that steed of yours is up together as much as it can before you travel out to the big stuff. So you want to make sure that things like your wheels aren't buckled or broken spokes or anything like that. You've got good conditions tyres for maximum grip. You know, you can make a few mods as well. Chuck some inserts in there so that you don't get punctures, get the suspension tuned and get it functioning properly. You don't want to go out on a blown shock pogo in your way down. That's no fun. Just really go over the bike. Make sure it's as up to scratch as possibly can be. I mean, it's sound advice for a normal ride, but when you come into something as grand as this, the fast tracks, the long tracks, all the braking bumps, they really put a bike to the test and can rattle it to pieces. What about actually a few bits you could do to your bike to make that mountain experience a little bit more fun? Well, bigger rotors. More speed out here means more braking power potentially required, so you could stick some bigger rotors on your bike if you can, or some fresh brake pads at least, just so that you can make the most of it. Also, a lot of the riding out in mountains is lift assisted, or certainly uplift days, things like that. So some downhill tyres. You don't need to worry about the weight so much, so get those thicker casing tyres on, softer rubber, more grip. They might wear out a little bit quicker, but you're gonna have more fun, and more fun is no punctures. Nobody wants punctures. So those are a few great little tips and tricks you can do to your bike to really get the most out of your experience. It's not your bike then that takes a hammering in the mountains, it's your kit as well. And being well prepared and having the right kit can actually make things safer as for you, but also sort of help you get more out of the experience. So things like a backpack. You're gonna go out for some big old days, long times on chairlifts, exploring all over the place. So having a really good backpack that you can take a lot of spares, some food, some water, even a jacket. You know, when you're up here, the cloud, as you can see, can really roll in. So having a warm, waterproof jacket is really helpful as well. A helmet, well, that's a must. If you're gonna be riding real gnarly stuff, maybe think about switching out to a full face, and some eyewear, yes. Keep those peepers protected. It gets pretty fast as well, so you don't want to be crying and getting watery eye on the way down. Other protection, well, gloves, some would consider a must, especially if you don't want gravel rash or hands looking like mine. Knee pads, I would definitely recommend. Elbow pads and back protectors if you want to take it to the next level. And then things like your footwear as well. Just some good shoes, some good comfy shoes that you can spend all day. And they don't necessarily have to be riding specific. If you can't afford them, say, that doesn't matter. But just something that you're going to be comfy in all day, and that kind of goes for all of your kit. When planning what you're going to take clothing-wise for the day, then weather apps and local weather stations are a great way of finding out just what it's going to be doing up there. You can really look into the depths hour by hour, even half hour by half hour, and break it down to find out what sort of clothing you're going to need. And if you're doing a big epic ride, just remember, the weather where you are could be okay, but if you're heading 30, 40k up the valley or down the valley, wherever, the weather could actually be completely different. So you might think shorts and t-shirts is fine now, but it could get cold, especially, again, if you're going to be out for a long time. The morning could be warm, but by the time you get to late afternoon, the temperature could drop. So it's really worth sort of planning and looking into these things. If you're going to venture off piste, then that's where a backpack can come in, because then you can take those extra spares with you that could get you out of trouble, maybe even a small first aid kit. And it's always worth having the emergency services number and the relevant numbers of mountain rescue that can help you get you out of trouble. In that backpack, because those days could be longer, if you are off piste, you can also chuck in that nice lightweight, hopefully packable warm jacket or an extra layer should it draw out and you need to keep warm. Finally, if you are off-piste, then maybe just worth checking your routes so that you can pre-plan maybe areas that you can get off the mountain as well if the weather does change. Little get-out ways to maybe villages or towns that cut the ride short, but if the weather does close in, these can really save you as well. What to look out for then when riding in the mountains, especially if you're new to it or for the uninitiated. Things are going to be very different to your local. Tracks are going to be a lot longer, sort of literally miles longer. They can be miles long. They're also going to be looser and rougher, generally always rockier. And you're going to find braking bumps, which if you're not used to, are really going to be quite the rude awakening. What can you do to help tackle these flat-out savage runs then? Well, there's actually quite a few things you can do. So first up, things like gloves or nice soft grips are going to help relieve all that small bump vibration, if you like, and ease things, which hopefully will in turn relieve arm pump, which is when the fronts of your arms, your forearms here, if you like, really go rock hard just from gripping on for dear life. And remember, if they are really big runs, don't go just trying to smash the whole thing. Actually take it steady. You could break it down into sections and just enjoy the run into manageable bite-sized pieces. If it's a particularly rough line, there's lots of braking bumps, or it's pretty wild, and you're not used to it, you're finding it really tough, look for the smoother line. Line choice comes into play so often. So if there's loads of braking bumps on the main line, but actually 2 foot to the side, say, it's nice and smooth. All right, it may not make a turn that you're getting to particularly easy to do, but it will save your arms and your legs and even your bike from just rattling to pieces. So just always be looking ahead, keeping vigilant, looking for those nice smooth lines. They can really save the day. With alpine riding also comes altitude and exposure. That gnarly weather I've already sort of touched on. And you've got to watch out for it. When you're at the top, the wind, the rain, the weather can really take you by surprise, especially if you're riding narrow sort of ridge lines or tracks right on the edge, which do happen. They're really great fun to ride, but you've got to watch things like side winds and crosswinds, hail, just things that maybe obstruct your view or make it very difficult to ride. If you're riding in those kinds of conditions, there's a few things you can do. If it's really windy, actually just ever so slightly compensating for that by leaning into the wind slightly will help counterbalance yourself so you can keep going straight forwards. Another thing, eyewear, really useful. If it's windy or especially driving rain, something like that, keep those eyes protected. It's going to keep the vision nice and clear so you can focus on your riding as well. That way, when you're riding those real fun exposed lines, the weather is one less thing to worry about. We've all been guilty of getting a bit sendy on those first bike park laps. You get to the mountain, you look up and see this plethora of trails above you, and all you want to do is just get out of there. You're chomping at the bit, but don't, wait, hold up. That's when accidents happen. Rein it in a little, just go down, cruise it a bit steadier, get a few sighting laps in at least, or get a nice steady first day under your belt. You might get to a jump, and you know what? You don't even know what's the other side of it because you've never ridden that track before. So you just go hooning off of it into no man's land, and that is not going to do you any good. Check her out, maybe plop off it to begin with and build up, and then you can get to that bike park and really send it. Another great top tip is taking some spares out with you, be it clothing, equipment, tubes, tires, perishables mainly. Alpine resorts are beautiful, they're stunning places, but they're not known for being the cheapest. Because it's a captive market, you can't really go anywhere to get stuff. If you want to replace anything that's broken, then you've got to get it from the local bike shops. Don't get me wrong, local bike shops are always great if you do need a bit of a hand. They're always really happy to lend out a bit of advice, but they won't always save you a few quid like your local bike shop at home. So just maybe pack in a few tires if you can, some brake pads, maybe a chain and a mech, just those things that are likely to take a hit. There you have it then, my top tips for tackling the mountains. I hope you found them helpful, whether it's your first time or your 100th time heading out for a big old epic in the mountains. I hope they've been really useful, but I'm done, I'm out of here. Don't forget, why not subscribe to the channel for more great content? Let me know in the comments below where you're heading out into the mountains maybe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. See you later.